Hello and welcome to Pan Society Radio. I'm your host and co-founder of Pan Society, Laura Giles. We have a really different show for you today. Medium and author Norton Richman is here talking about the Kabbalah. So let's get started by opening sacred space. I call to the element of earth to ground us and provide us with support. I call on the element of air to open our minds to new ideas. I'd also like to call to the element of fire to purify us of things that keep us stuck and closed off. I call to the element of water to illuminate things that are hidden from us so that we can continue to grow. I call for our loving, helping ancestors and other helping spirits that always walk beside us whether we know it or not. And I'd like to give thanks to the elements for all the ways that they support us, as well as our ancestors, swimming, two-legged, four-legged, and flying brothers and sisters, as well as the plant creatures. Together, let us continue to create a beautiful, loving future. Finally, I'd also like to thank our listeners for tuning in and supporting us with your Facebook and Twitter likes and shares. We broke a barrier of 150 likes on Facebook and 140 followers on Twitter. So go team! It's a start, right? Please keep your social media support and your donations coming. All right, let's get on with the show. As I said today, our guest is Norton Richman. He's the author of A Kabbalist in Spirit, A Family Friend, which was endorsed by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's been a student of Kabbalah for over 40 years and a trance medium. He channels his Maggid, his teacher, Rabbi William Anderson. Today we're going to explore how the Kabbalah can help us in our everyday life. So welcome, Norton.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's great for us for you to be here. So, Norton, how did you get involved in the Kabbalah?
Well, what happened was, for many years, I was struggling with family issues and became a social worker and recognized that in order to help folks, I needed to help myself. And so I got into therapy. I got into family therapy, and recognized a great deal of blocks and created by guilt and my own doing. And fortunately, with the help of some wonderful people, I began to unravel some of the painful blocks that I had experienced as a young person. When I did that, it freed me to begin to look at a broader world. And I got involved with the Archaeological Society, Amateur Archaeological Society, and from there I learned about Native American traditions and spiritual pursuits, and that was my launching pad to begin to look at metaphysics in general. One of the things that was difficult growing up as an Orthodox Jew and observing all the Orthodox traditions. One of the questions that remained open was what happens when one dies. And Rabbinical Judaism did not answer that for me, nor did it really address it in many ways. So that was another motivation to pursue these traditions that did speak about a continuation of life after death, and that decisions are made on a deeper level of consciousness. And so I was clear that in order to pursue this belief in the metaphysical laws and principles, or the universal laws and principles, that I needed to be open on an emotional level, on a feeling level, and recognize that my ego would not take me through to a place of the kind of joy, the kind of clarity that I have now in my later years. So I ended up with this combination of a lot of different studies and disciplines in different religions, but came to the Kabbalah because it spoke to me. As being a Jew, it allowed some couching there in Judaic thought that was most comfortable for me. But one of the beautiful parts about the Kabbalah is that it's consistent with all the other disciplines, all the other mystical traditions. The Kabbalah, predates the Torah, or the 5 books of Moses. It's the oral and written tradition, mystical Jewish tradition, and it explains the laws and principles, both in the physical world, but also explains the laws and principles in the non-physical world. And with that combination of explanation, it has given me personally so much more sense of purpose and joy in being here. So that's kind of how I arrived at this place of embracing the Kabbalah.
And what about mediumship? Is that a part of mystical Judaism?
It's an extension, really, of all mystical concepts. Basically, mediumship or psychic abilities or intuitiveness is just extensions of who we are. I like to say that the Kabbalah takes the myth out of mysticism. There's nothing magical or mystical about an extension of who we are. It's just a deeper level of consciousness as to who we are and whether we want to express that deeper level of consciousness, and all has to do with intent. In the Kabbalah, it's called the Kabbalah, or your deepest intention. And for some, it becomes a passion and a desire to extend this natural ability. And I use the word natural ability because it is natural. But it's manifested in different ways. It's manifested, if you're an artist, for example, you, like my mother, who was a clairvoyant, she could see into the non-physical. Well, it was natural for her extension, her personality extension, and her interest was to begin to perceive visually. I experienced dyslexia as a child and could not read. So my coping was listening. And so I'm clairaudient, and I'm able to hear telepathically my teacher in the non-physical world, Rabbi Anderson, who has taught me over the last 40 years a great deal and has been my friend and comforter, my Nahum. And so, but mediumship really is inherent in anybody and everybody who wants to pursue that natural extended, we use the word extended desire and ability to manifest itself in all kinds of ways.
Okay. So why would you say we are here?
Well, it's my belief that we're here to learn to grow closer to self and God. And that we're in a school that we have chosen, I have chosen, as well as all of the co-creators out there, to meet certain challenges, emotional, spiritual challenges, so that we can become closer to God. And that means growing closer to our hearts, embracing our hearts, recognizing our egos, recognizing the value of the ego, but at the same time embracing the heart and knowing that the heart is our true teacher. But we're in a school where we have chosen a ego level of consciousness, in that this world is much of its perception is around separation. And in reality, there is no separation. There's no separation from our souls and God. There's no separation of people, of worlds. There's no separation of worlds. There is only one world. I use this world only as a way of clarity and ease to explain. But in Kabbalah, there is no separation of worlds. There is no separation of people. There is no separation of souls. All is one. And so when you come from a point of fear, which many of us do or have in the past, it creates separation. We become fearful of intimacy. We become fearful of closeness. We feel like we need to be better than the other person. We don't realize that they're brothers and sisters, and that what happens to them is paramount to what happens to us, that there is no separation. So it's the purpose is to grow closer to self and God, and and this is a wonderful school to grow and learn to that place of acceptance. But it's not always an easy journey, and I don't want to make light of it being an easy school. It's a difficult school. It's a painful school. We've chosen it though, and it has unique features. It has a uniqueness, if you will, that no other world has, physical or non-physical. It's as unique as you are and I am and everybody that's listening. Each world has a uniqueness. It doesn't mean it's separate, but it does mean it's unique and has certain challenges that go with it. And we have chosen, as we choose everything, on a deeper level of consciousness to come here and to learn and grow. There's no such thing as accidents in the Kabbalah. Everything has reason and purpose to it. And even though we experience things that are painful, they still have reason and purpose to them. I have many examples of where before I embraced and understood and embraced the beliefs that I had, I did think in terms of accidents, that things do happen coincidentally or accidentally. I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that the lion just happened to get that particular zebra. I believe that there is reason and purpose, and we have chosen our birth, our death, our lives on deeper levels of consciousness to grow and learn. And even though I lost my wife when my son was 5, as painful as that was, I still had clarity and some level of comfort in knowing that there is some reason and purpose to it. And that's very powerful when you lose someone close to you. So reason and purpose is a great comfort. And embracing this belief system in the Kabbalah has so many virtues and is so helpful in so many ways for me personally. And I want to share that with as many people as I can who are interested and who are open to it. There's two things that one needs to pursue that are really important in pursuing Kabbalah. And one is that there's an openness, at least, to a continuation of life after death. And the other is that all decisions are made on a deeper level of consciousness. We're more than who we think we are, not less. And that's a concept that we have to begin to accept in order to broaden ourselves. It certainly was my need for me, because I was very much laid up in my intellect, in my I'm not an intellectual, but I was seated in my intellect, and until I was able to open my heart, did I recognize the value of who I am and who everybody else is. You can't give what you don't have for yourself, and that has helped me, and both in my profession as a social worker in human services now 50 years, and also in my personal life with intimacy with other people I'm close with.
So, you had used the term co-creator. Can you tell us what does that mean in the Kabbalah?
Yes, that's a good question. The co-creator, yes, the Kabbalah says that we are of one, and we co-create from that point. So each of us has a soul, and we co-create. We create spontaneously and creatively in order to meet our desires to grow closer to self and God. Now, sometimes there's error in that, and we walk down a different path that's not helpful. But you always can choose to walk a different path. But you always have the choice to make. That a co-creator is, I guess the best way to explain it too is that everything is cooperative. In other words, on a conscious surface level, we look at, well, what, that person or those things will happen to me. But in a Kabbalistic principle is that nothing happens to you unless you want it to happen. So this co-creation, whether it's of beauty and cohesiveness or something less than that, it's always done with free will, and it's done in a cooperative manner. And that's a difficult concept when bad things happen to people. But that it's a question, again, of choice, of accidents. Do you believe in accidents, or do you believe in purpose and meaning? You can't believe in both. It doesn't work that way. Either you believe that there's purpose and meaning to everything, and you have made choices that have challenged you to grow, or that there's somehow the universe has acted on you in a way and you have no choice, in which case you become a victim. And that's not a good place to be, is to feel like you're a victim. It means that you're going to stay a victim your whole life in some cases, and that's not going to bring you joy. So what I have
saying,
mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No,
you're saying that if I am born handicapped, then I made the choice before I was even born to be handicapped?
That's correct. We make choices prior to birth. We choose mothers and fathers, and they choose us. again, it's a cooperative effort. It's not one-sided. All the parties have to be simpatico. They have to be in agreement that for the father and the mother, if they're going to see it as beneficial, and for the new soul coming into the earth plane, that it's beneficial for them as well. So it's all cooperative. Nothing is acted upon. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Murderer and victim is cooperative?
Yes. That's why I just said it's a very hard concept. It's a very difficult concept because you say, well, that person didn't want to be murdered, or that person didn't want to be sick or handicapped. But in reality, in accordance with Kabbalistic law and principle, there was a choice that was made for that incident, for that experience. It was purposeful and meaningful.
So we're talking about I'm sorry. Are we talking about like karma or learning, or what kind of purpose?
It's about learning. It's all about learning. This whole school is about learning to go closer to self and God. Sometimes souls come into the earth plane and die in 3 months. It's tragic. It hurts parents. I'm not making it to not be painful, but there's purpose and meaning. Some souls just want to come to the earth plane to feel what it's like to be on the earth plane. They've never been on the earth plane before. They've been on other dimensions, other forms of existence, other than the physical plane. They want to know what it's like. And some want to stay and some don't. It is as many reasons for these choices as there are souls. And there's no easy way to explain it all other than that.
So are these choices always predetermined before, or can it happen in the moment? So I'm thinking specifically of something like suicide. So would I come into this life knowing that I'm going to suicide, or could I just decide it on a whim?
You can make decisions anytime in any form of existence. You can make decisions that you feel are beneficial. And suicide is something where a person makes a decision that perhaps they don't feel hope. They don't see any purpose and meaning to being on the earth plane. The choice is made to cease existence here. But in the Kabbalah, one always has to face the challenges. So you take with you whatever you have experienced on the earth plane, at least on a spiritual level, into the non-physical when you pass into spirit, whether that's suicide, natural death, whatever the choice that you've made, you experience that. Those challenges, you continue to experience those challenges in your next existence, which we've all had many of.
So are you talking about life after death then? Are you talking about reincarnation, or are you talking about both?
I'm talking about both. I'm talking about prior to birth, you make certain, you choose certain intents, Kabbalah. You make certain intentions within yourself, within your soul, that this is what you want to get out of life. Excuse me, on the earth plane. And then you come into the earth plane and you experience what you have chosen. And reincarnation, which is, by the way, is much more complicated than what people think. Once you begin to explore reincarnation, there's a lot of factors involved that come into play. Now, I won't go into that now, but basically, what the Kabbalah says is you're going to have as much, quote, time as you need to fulfill your sense of purpose and your connection with the source, with God, with all that is. And you're gonna be allowed that not only in the earth plane, but any dimension of expression that you choose. You don't have to come back to the earth plane. There is cycles that are involved. Again, I won't go into it, but there are other dimensions and other forms of existence that one can experience their consciousness in. By the way, consciousness for us always creates form, symbols. So we really here can't function basically without symbols of consciousness that are created by consciousness. There are other dimensions that perhaps don't need symbols, but we require them on this earth plane. I hope that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. So if I am an alcoholic and I don't learn anything that changes that, or I don't have the support, or for whatever reason I die an alcoholic, then am I still, you said you carry that into the next realm. So in the afterlife, am I still, how does that manifest in the afterlife?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become, create another life of alcoholism. You may create the antithesis of that. You may become someone who's a teetotaler. If you were rich in this life, you may choose to be poor the next. If you, it's all about experiencing what you feel would be helpful to grow closer to self and God. It doesn't mean that you're going to be an addict because you've been an addict. And this one, again, it could be the antithesis. You could choose something else. But the choices all have to do with growing closer to your soul. There's very, very, very few. Well, let's just say this: there's no such thing as making a choice that's not ultimately helpful. Because even if you make a choice that's an error or not helpful, then at some point in your existence, you're going to make another choice that's going to be more helpful.
So how does this play into the sense of self-worth? It's almost sounding like, and maybe this is just me reading into it, that no matter what path you choose, that you're on purpose and on track. So therefore, you should just love yourself and be with it.
Yes, because if you love yourself, you truly love yourself, you're going to make decisions that are far more helpful to you than if you live in fear of yourself, live in fear and embrace your blocking, those things that I was doing intellectually, embracing the ego or embracing reason all the time. When you make choices that involve more helpful, less egocentric, you don't have to experience the pain. But yes, to answer your question, there is nothing that is wasted. Nothing is wasted. No life experience is ever wasted. It's always going to have purpose and meaning. Even if it takes you a long way to where it's helpful, it's still going to bring you back to your origin. In the Kabbalah, they speak about souls, our souls, as falling sparks, because we've embraced the ego and just acknowledged the heart, perhaps, moved away from ourselves. And we have all the time we need to recognize that what this error and judgment, if you will, or as a Kabbalist, as the falling spark, to grow, to recognize that is not our intent.
So I am interpreting, maybe incorrectly, that what you're saying is that you can't really tell a person's intent or their, I don't want to use the word karma, you can't really tell anything about a person or their situation by looking at the outside. For example, if one person is healthy and another person is not, you can't really say anything about their choices about how spiritually evolved they are. Is that correct?
Right. That's right. One of the lessons that I learned when I was younger is that the only heart that I can know is my own. I don't know anyone else's heart and can never know anyone else's heart. They can share with me, I can share with them, and we can grow closer and intimate with more of who we are. But to really know another person's heart, and to say that you do know why they chose a certain thing, borders sometimes on arrogance. This pursuit, not only around the Kabbalah, but my mediumship and the lessons I've learned, is one has to stay very clear about where you are intellectually and where you are emotionally. They're two very different things. And it means staying vulnerable and humble, which I was not. And not, that was my early experience. But in order to find joy, as opposed to, joy, by the way, is long-lasting. Happiness can just be brief. I'm speaking of joy here. In order to feel that, it's important to recognize that the only heart that you truly know, or potentially know, is your own heart. And hopefully that grows with each of us. It certainly has grown with mine. It doesn't mean I'm finished or completed. It just means that I've learned more about who I am in my heart. And by the way, the Kabbalah doesn't say you are complete. It will never say in the literature. It will never say a person is completed. Now you can finish certain challenges, and you can come to terms with those challenges, but we're always becoming. We're always evolving and becoming because we're of God. And so being co-creators, we're always becoming and never complete. And that's important to know. perhaps I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but the idea of knowing why somebody has certain challenges can remain a mystery on the deeper levels, because only they know, only they know what their motivations are. And sometimes the only way they know that is on deeper levels of consciousness. They don't always know, as we all don't always know consciously. So it takes a process. And by the way, there are different levels of consciousness. There are many levels of consciousness, and the deeper we can go, the broader the world becomes, and the more unified it becomes at the same time. The more we recognize we're one, and also the vastness of potential. The potential is infinite, and that's a great comfort. And it's not a threatening one to feel like you're a part of a large universe, when you know that we are all one, and we're just emanating from one and co-creating. Hopefully I'm explaining myself, but that's what I feel and that's what I believe.
And when you say we're ever evolving, is that another way of saying that life is eternal?
That's correct. Everything that I believe and everything that I've been taught and that my rabbi has taught me in the non-physical is that there is no beginning and there is no end. There is no such thing in our world as time. Time was created by all of us, but in actuality, there is past, present, and future as all simultaneous. That's another topic that we could talk about at another time, but far too complex to spend a short amount of time on.
Okay. And you talked about the decisions being made on a deeper level of consciousness. So if I have some challenge, a health challenge, a financial challenge, a relationship challenge, and I am working on manifesting something different, and I just, my conscious mind is just really doesn't know why I am not getting what I want. How do I get my conscious mind in this deeper level of existence to connect?
Well, everybody has a different way. I explained to you that my path was around therapy, and my book explains the process of what I went through. But there are many ways to begin to free these emotional blockages. You can pursue meditation. There's many forms of healing, body work, that can unlock some of these fears and lessons or things that you were taught about yourself that aren't true. So there are many ways, and as many ways to do it as there are people in it, and just have to find what's best for you. Again, everything is based on the intent, the Kabbalah. If your intent is, I don't want to be in this emotional place, or I don't want to be in this place, I want to be in a place that lends itself to me feeling more joy, that's the beginning. I've taught the blind and vision impaired for 45 years, a social worker for 5, And I was not able to help anyone who did not want help.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. All right, Norton. Well, that was really interesting. The book again is A Kabbalist in Spirit, A Family Friend. It's $15 and is available by email. That address is tmoser8@verizon.net, and I'll also have that on the podcast so you don't have to write it down. And half the book is Norton's experience on becoming a trance medium, and the other half is the unedited communication from Rabbi Anderson. So thank you, Norton, for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a real treat.
Sure. And thank you all for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can post them on Facebook or email me at laura@pansociety.net or rick@pansociety.net. Your comments help us to know what matters to you, so please reach out. And if you'd like to donate, of course, you can do that on our website at www.pansociety.net. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.